What if arousal was not just about sex, but about aliveness, about creativity, clarity, motivation, and the energy that actually fuels how we show up in life? Many of us have been taught to suppress it, manage it, or feel ashamed of it. But what if that very energy is the missing link to mental resilience and emotional vitality? Today, we explore arousal as life force energy and what happens when we learn to work with it instead of against it. Welcome to Mind Over Matter, the podcast where we explore the inner mechanics of resilience, awareness, and human potential. Today, I'm joined by Hani Cheng, whose journey bridges corporate leadership, deep personal healing, and ancient practices rooted in Tantra and Taoist philosophy. We are talking about arousal as life force energy, how it shapes our mental health, creativity, and sense of purpose, and how reclaiming it can transform the way we live and relate. So, Hani, welcome to Mind Over Matter. It's a pleasure to host you today.
Yeah, thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah. So, Hani, before we go into frameworks or practices, I'm curious. When you look back at your earlier life, what did being disconnected from your sensual and emotional energy actually feel like on a day to day level?
It just felt like, it felt like not knowing what my true worth was. It felt like, chasing after the wrong goal points, and it felt like people didn't see exactly who I was and was only able to see the accomplishments or the statuses that I've gathered. So yeah, so when you're fully embodying your body and your sensuality and who you really are beyond your resume. You are beyond who you are as roles to your parents or your kids or to your community. It is an ever changing evolution of it, and you become more visible.
No, yeah, that could be frustrating, and I think so many people relate to that as well. People seeing you as for what you did and not how you are. So yeah, I'm glad you overcame all of that and you could at least see, who you truly are. So that's great for you. So Hani, many people hear the word arousal and immediately associate it with only sex or desire. But from your perspective, what is the best misconception that people have about arousal as energy?
Well, like going from I used to work in corporate marketing and then have been doing this healing journey and energy healing work and also sexuality and sensuality work for the last 10 plus years. And arousal isn't just sexual, right? There is an arousal that's directed outwards, where you assign the arousal to an exterior validation, which is oftentimes what people do if they don't know that arousal actually originates from within us. Just like how our self love originate within us, you don't have to direct or assign another human being as the responsibility of your arousal. So when you were actually self ownership, you take ownership of your arousal and you're aroused by the world around you. When you eat a delicious matcha brownie or you have you look at an amazing sunset, the arousal you feel is actually something that's stimulating your nervous system in a way that is positive, it is expansive. Or when a kid gets so delightful and fully active, fully alive. That's what arousal really is, right? It's a stimulation of all of your senses where you're fully open and you're celebrating life. It has nothing to do. It doesn't need to have anything to do of another person or objectification or thinking that, oh, I want to do something to this person, therefore that is, there's nothing wrong with that. yet. However, if we start and look at what our basic level and our solo experience of what lights us up with, that is essentially what arousal is. It's something that makes you feel more alive. And whether that is within you in your day to day life, or that is you in a way that is more um, fetishized, as long as it is consensual and as long as it is done consciously, which means that you're constantly questioning yourself, is this something that is done from a place of humility, vulnerability, honesty, respect, then arousal is a place of aliveness. And when it's only concerning you and nature or you and your aliveness within you, then that's really what creates more life in you. Something that's creating more life essentially will give you more energy and then more drive, more motivation, more excitement, and more flow.
Wow, that's a fascinating way to look into it, and I never thought that arousal could mean something like that as well. So that's some really interesting information that you shared. So thanks for making us, look into it from a very different perspective. Because what you are pointing to is that arousal is not something separate from mental health. It is deeply tied to vitality, clarity, and self connection. So that reframes the conversation entirely. Let's stay with that for a moment. In your experience, where does this disconnection from life force energy usually begin? Is it cultural, emotional, or something that we learn very early on?
Or something that we learn to unlearn, right? Like as a kid arriving into this world, you're constantly connected to your life force. You're screaming with delight as you're jumping in the pool for the first time. You're just unhinged with full of joy, full of excitement, full of sadness, full of feelings. And then we go to school and we go to society and we learn that actually we can't be too loud, we can't talk too much, we can't offend and all that. And so then we start learning all these social conditionings that keep us that in a way that doesn't offend or doesn't overstimulate or become more considerate, which is all really wonderful skills. However, like, does that mean that sometimes we might lose the ability to be authentic? Because you can either go the extreme way, in which some people then intoxicate themselves or are only able to fully express in the context of um, substances or alternate mind states. And then sometimes it goes beyond what's authentic. Or are you able to really authentically experience the depth of experience through meditation, clearing the mind, and being able to fully experience that? So, where does this experience come from? We already have it. It's nothing, we're not trying to create it, right? It's what's true. If your true arousal is just subtly looking at the ocean and, you might see some people fishing, right? Some people fishing by the docks. And that's what truly makes them feel peace. And peace, the experience of peace makes them feel alive and rejuvenated. Then that's their experience of aliveness.
That's beautiful. And that also makes me curious to know that how did these deeper patterns show up in your own life, especially during your years in the corporate world?
I think that one of the patterns, I'm not sure which patterns you're specifically sharing, asking. Are you asking about like how aliveness shows up in my life?
Yes, yes.
It shows up in a way, in corporate, it really showed up in a way where it was slowly diminishing. I realized that I had so much excitement in in the earlier stages of my career where I was learning something new, learning about mobile apps, learning about digital marketing, learning about how to manage teams across like, 8 different countries or more, and just learning about structures and organization. And so learning was actually where my stimulation, excitement, arousal, aliveness was at. And so at a certain stage when I realized that my learning was starting to get dampened and that no matter how much I wanted to learn, it started to get slightly repetitive, that's when it reduced. And that reduction of that stimulation created stagnation, and stagnation created this feeling of dread or mundane, or it just created like a more monotone way of a day to day. And the lack of excitement made me look for aliveness in, growing other areas of my life, such as like sport and dance and learning 33 different modalities to self-heal, which kind of took me on this journey because of a 15-year disease. And so, and then, or, looking at, okay, what would it be like if I wrote a book and shared everything I've learned in the journey of self-healing and creating more connection with, all the way through my heart into my whole body, and what makes my whole world feel alive, and what makes my whole team's world feel alive. And so it shows up in my life in these ways, and realizing that intellectual stimulation um and the ability to stay hungry and stay excited is not something that is a hustle or push, but it is a very interesting attraction towards, certain topics and certain ways of self-expression and creativity. That's how I start looking at, okay, what actions can I take in my life? And I say this to my clients all the time, like, what is more expansive? What expands your capacity? What expands your capability? What expands your self-reliance? And what expands your ability to be sovereign, and not only in your work, but also in the way you live, being independent, but also interdependent with the ones around you.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it makes so much sense. And what stands out here is how socially rewarded disconnection can be, even when it slowly drains us from the inside. And I'm sure that you can relate to that as well, especially in the corporate world. And that brings up something important. How does this disconnection from arousal or life force energy show up in everyday mental health struggles like burnout, anxiety, or numbness?
Well, if you're disconnected from what feeds you, right? You're disconnected to what recharges you on a mental, emotional, spiritual, energetic level. Of course, sleep, good health, nutrition, sunlight, water, these are all like physical things that can nourish you. And then love and connection and healthy relationships are kind of what creates feeding your emotional bonds, and the absence of conflict, or healthy conflict resolution and stuff can increase your well-being and your fulfillment of life. But the absence of something that excites you, something that wants to deepen, something that creates meaning. So arousal and aliveness also is found in the most intimate experiences with your children, or your relationships, or yourself, right? Like, how much love and excitement and pleasure can you experience on your own? So that is going to affect your well-being in your life. So what was your question again? I was just about to answer it.
No, I think you exactly answered that. I was asking how can the disconnection from arousal show up in our everyday mental health struggles like burnout, anxiety, or numbness?
Yeah, so when we don't have that, then we're going to get burnt out, right? If you keep giving and giving and giving, and you keep wanting something that doesn't feed you back, it's unsustainable. And when we're in an unsustainable loop, that's when burnout happens. It's not about it's not about overproductivity at the expense of your feeding yourself with nourishment. And if you continuously aim for a goal that does not give back to you, that's when starvation happens from your spiritual self or your energetic self. If you know that you're fed by connection and authenticity and living your true purpose and in terms of like contribution and feeling alive and wanting to be a positive impact and contributor in your family and your community and your organization and the world, then you gotta find a way to nourish and charge yourself as well.
Absolutely. And it's so usual in today's world because people just do what they're supposed to do. They don't do what they want to do or what excites them. And I think that disconnection, it does show up in their everyday life, in their mental health, and their overall well-being. So yeah, you have just described it,
And I think
exactly.
that a lot of people know that these are important things and, in the name of providing for the family, for example, you might find that you want to sacrifice a lot of your own well-being to contribute to the family and put food on the table. And so you think you're going to put your head down and just like make a certain amount and make sure you can have that nest egg so that you can continuously provide for generations to come. And that's really, really beautiful as a provider. And at the same time, um, what truly nourishes your loved ones, right? In addition to material gathering or in addition to the things that you are already doing, it's a holistic kind of love. And so your well being holistically is also going to nourish all those around you holistically.
Yeah, exactly. You couldn't have put it more beautifully. I mean, definitely. I think people, they are so busy being providers that they forget that they are human beings too. And I think it's really important to remember that. So, honey, for someone listening right now who feels curious but also cautious, what is a grounded first step to reconnect with this life force energy without it feeling overwhelming or unsafe?
It's to realize that your untapped aliveness lives in a place where you can connect your pleasure, which lives in your second chakra under your belly and your heart and your throat and your brain and then your infinite self. And so breathing through visualizing each of those centers and being able to expand that with deep, quiet, peaceful breaths, lengthen those breaths and go through them. And also, you can check out my Insight Timer or my YouTube channel or come over for some meditations as well.
Yeah, and that what you just said, it makes me curious to know that how do practices like breath work or energy cultivation help regulate the nervous system rather than overstimulate it?
Basically, it lowers your heart rate and then it allows your body to get out of the fight or flight mode. And you can read up on a lot of the Wim Hof studies for breath work and or the parasympathetic nervous system, and just allowing yourself to be in a space of openness and peripheral vision that allows you to see things more clearly without the pressure of being rushed or making the wrong decisions. It's coming from a place of centeredness and groundedness.
Yeah, that balance between safety and aliveness feels crucial, especially for people who have experienced trauma or control patterns around their body. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing that, Hani.
Oh,
And
absolutely. And
no,
sometimes you might not find that safety. So I work with a lot of people who have experienced a lot of unsafe situations as well. So understanding that that's a journey and not being hard on yourself and knowing that, any baby step is such a relief for the nervous system already.
exactly. I mean, I think what's really important is taking the first step, however small it is, because even that can make significant changes in your life. So, Hani, for anyone listening who feels disconnected from joy, desire, or motivation, what would you invite them to gently notice about their body and breath today without trying to change anything?
exactly what you said. Just notice, like, what is the quality of your breath? Is it deep? Is it shallow? Is it delicious? Like, how are you embodying your voice? Is your voice resonating throughout your whole body, or is it just in your throat, or is it just in your head? How much of you are you using to speak, to listen, to walk, to engage with the world? Are you noticing like your toes, how much awareness do you have in your body? And that really already shows you how alive. Maybe it's just your brain that's alive. Maybe it's just your throat up and your neck up that's alive. Maybe you're not even engaging your stomach, your womb, your bum. Maybe your legs are asleep. Maybe you have no connection to any of those parts. So just notice. Notice how you show up physically and emotionally. Are you in touch with your feelings? What do they feel like today? Are you in touch with your energy? How does your energy feel like today? And are you in touch with love? Where is love in your life and your body?
Hmm. That's some amazing advice. And noticing the smallest things about yourself can change a lot of things in your life. And arousal is not something to control or fear. It is life force energy. And when we learn to relate to it consciously, it becomes a source of resilience, creativity, and deep self trust. So, Hani, for listeners who want to explore your work further, where is the best place for them to find you and learn more about?
Center.com, which you can find, and then you'll find like intimacy coaching is one of the pillars of the work that we do. So you can definitely sign up for a 4-part mini series that goes through the Central Liberation Program stuff, which is an incredible step by step process of how to reconnect with your body and find all kinds of orgasmic pleasure in a way that is very respectful and conscious and just like deeply connected to your authentic centrality. And then you can also, through that, access my work on YOLO Abundance with the leadership coaching stuff and energy work that helps you gain clarity around your next steps. Or if you want to simply do healing in whatever areas of your life you haven't found yet and you want to find out what triggers and how to transcend any type of triggers, you can also reach out through YOLOabundance.com.
That sounds amazing. I'll have all the details on my show listing, and our listeners can feel free to connect with you whenever and however they want. To our listeners, thank you for joining us on Mind Over Matter. If this conversation resonated, take a moment to reflect on where your own energy feels alive and where it feels held back. Until next time, stay present, stay curious, and remember that your inner world shapes everything you create outside.